September could be full of unexpected surprises and interesting events. We've got a Friday the 13th, we've got a full moon lunar eclipse. Things could definitely get interesting for sure. I'm here to tell you all about it and how to prepare yourself. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Erin, I'm Queen Bee Tarot. I've got detailed horoscopes for the next 2 weeks, starting September 1st and going to September 14th. Timestamps will be below. I've got chapters organized and I've got individual detailed horoscopes for all 12 signs. I definitely encourage you to stick around for this general overview though. I do give a bigger picture kind of explanation of what's happening here, and I also want to warn you against making rash decisions or quick judgments, because one of the things that's really deeply ingrained into our North American society is fear around Friday the 13th. Why is there so much fear around the number 13? Let me tell you. Back thousands of years ago, it was women who kept time. And women have a way of keeping time because once a month they have their moon cycle. And for that reason, all of the ancient calendars that were ever developed by early civilizations centered around the movement of the moon. And guess what? There are 13 moons in a year. So the number 13 is associated with the matriarchy, with society or culture being led by women. And what happened with the patriarchal society takeover, especially with Christianity taking over Europe, is this process of domination, including genocide and eliminating early timekeeping methods and ways of organizing society. What they did was very systematically and very deliberately, they took the power out of the hands of women. And not only did they take the power out of the hands of women, but they also vilified women, framing them as demons or temptresses or the root of all evil, which is the biggest load of shit ever, right? So part of that process was taking little things that were associated with women and turning them into stories of bad luck. So, long story short, the number 13 has been vilified, but only in a way to suppress the ancient knowledge kept by women, the ancient sacred ways of keeping time. So, 13 is actually quite a lucky number. It represents completion, understanding, and transformation. And on that note, we have a lot of themes centered around transformation really coming to a head this month. Now, what starts off the month of September? It is Sunday, September 1st, and today Uranus goes retrograde and Pluto, which is already retrograde, moves back into Capricorn. Now, the thing about Pluto moving back into Capricorn is that this is the very last time it is going to tiptoe into the very last degrees of Capricorn for the next 250 years. And that's because Pluto moves so slowly that it spends decades in one zodiac sign. And yeah, 250 years before it's ever going to be back to the same spot that it is now. Pluto represents power and control, the power and control issues that we see outside of ourselves, but also the power and control issues that we deal with on an internal basis, such as shadow work. And when Pluto is retrograde, which it goes retrograde for quite a few months every year, just by virtue of it being an outer planet, when it goes retrograde, we are invited to rethink our personal relationship with power and control. Now, while Pluto has been moving through in and out of Capricorn for the last couple of decades, it has really brought to light the power and control held by the patriarchy. Capricorn is associated with heavy duty and responsibility, methodical and joyless organization of society. Capricorn is a very serious earth sign, and it is associated with the patriarchy. And while Pluto has been making its journey through Capricorn, and then over the last 2 years, it keeps dipping into Aquarius and then going back into Capricorn, giving us a taste of the new way. You know, there's that song from the 60s, The Age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is associated with doing things for the greater good, highlighting arts, music, individuality, culture, and encouraging, supporting the development of our own unique perspectives and spirits. So as this dance has been going back and forth with Pluto, you know, giving us a taste of what's going to come with this age of Aquarius, but then dipping back into Capricorn, this is the final time that it's going to do it. And it's going to be in Capricorn until, what have I got written down? November 19th. Just after the American election. On that note, I do want to encourage any Americans that are watching, please go to vote.org, double check that your voter registration is there. Specifically, if you are a resident of Texas, they have just purged the voter registrations, getting rid of Democrats, getting rid of people of color. Please, please, please follow through on these things, because especially with Uranus going retrograde and Pluto back in Capricorn leading up to the American election, there is a very high likelihood that certain groups of people are becoming disenfranchised. And even though you have been registered to vote in the past, it might not still be in effect. So please follow through. Please be diligent about that, and please go vote. Encourage your neighbors, drive your friends, anybody who doesn't have a ride, vote. Power to the people is the theme of Pluto being in Aquarius, and thankfully that is where it's going to be for the next couple of decades after November. But it's really important that every single person on an individual level does their part to further the advancement of society. Now, this is outside of politics. This is in any possible way that you can imagine. We are collectively making a huge shift away from greedy power structures into looking after our fellow human beings. This is a very important process. And all of these planets, you know, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, those are all considered to be outer planets because of how far they are in the outer solar system. Typically, their movement does represent incidents and occurrences that are happening kind of outside of ourselves. But any of the change, any of the transformation catalyzed by these outer planets eventually lead to change within us. And then when these outer planets come out of retrograde, the opposite becomes true. Our internal change catalyzes external results. So while Uranus is retrograde, which it will be until the beginning of next year, that is one of those highlighted times where we are observing things happening outside of us, and in return, we are making internal changes. Now, the way that this might possibly manifest for you or become apparent within your life is a bit of not fun deja vu. While these two planets are retrograde and activating these rock solid earth signs, Uranus is in Taurus, Pluto is temporarily in Capricorn, there is a sense of seeing manifested in your day-to-day life realizations or situations in which you're going to have some sort of a response like, I thought I was done with this shit. I thought we were done with this shit. One of my favorite phrases lately is, we are not going back. But if we do not take individual action to catalyze and cement the changes that we want to see, then there's a huge likelihood of the powers that be or the old ways of doing things are going to stand firmly rooted. So every single one of us on a personal and global level needs to take responsibility for bringing into reality the lives that we want. And it starts on a very small level. It starts by claiming your power in a humble and respectful way and doing your best to empower those around you so that no group is disenfranchised. Everyone deserves to be able to live their lives, and everyone deserves to be able to live those lives in whatever way they choose, in whatever way they see fit, especially when it comes to personal sovereignty and the right to choose on any level what you do with your life, right? So leading up to, we have a new moon in Virgo tomorrow, Monday. Now, the new moon in Virgo, what we have is the moon and the sun being in the exact same spot in Virgo. As we move through Virgo season, there is a highlight on health and wellness of the mind, the body, and the spirit, and tying together themes of health and wellness when it comes to the context of what do you do on a daily basis. Because Virgo is associated with the 6th house in astrology. That is a part of your chart where we see any kind of themes that get repeated in your day-to-day life. And it is through habit that we can establish a healthier way of being. You know, the whole New Year's resolution stuff usually doesn't stick because it's like, yay, I'm going to make this change. But then every single one of us struggles to put it into practice. So the new moon in Virgo happening Monday, September 2nd is a highlight on what sort of resolutions can you make and how can you implement them on a day-to-day basis so that they become daily practice. And again, it's really important to make small steps, small steps, small step. Because if you set a huge goal that feels like climbing up a cliff because you're wanting to change too many things all at the same time, you're setting yourself up for failure because it is just not reasonable to expect ourselves to change 180 degrees overnight. So one of the things I heard from a good friend of mine is start with one thing. Start with one small change that you want to make, implement it into your daily life, and then when it becomes routine, when it becomes easy, work on a second thing, right? Just one thing at a time. Make it really, really easy on yourself. The energy around the new moon in Virgo on Monday is going to really kind of bring a very sobering reality check to every single one of us. It's not a very light-hearted event, and astrologically there are a lot of challenging angles happening between the planets right now. The moon and sun are largely unaffected by other planets, but there is a theme of where and when we are loving ourselves into growth. We can't hate ourselves or bully ourselves into growth. We have to do it from a loving and compassionate place. We have to kind of tiptoe into these new beginnings and really give ourselves the time to put it into practice and see it play out. Now, immediately after the new moon in Virgo, Mars is at the final degrees of Gemini. And as I've mentioned before, anytime any planet is in the final degrees of a sign, it is known as an anaretic degree, and it brings a sense of urgency to whatever that planet represents. Now on Tuesday, September 3rd, Mars being at the final degrees of Gemini, Mars represents action and Gemini is all talk. So the theme while Mars has been moving through Gemini is having conversations about taking action, having a meeting about taking action, theoretically discussing taking action, but not actually following through. And so what you might find as September kind of gets started, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, is you might find yourself becoming irritated either with yourself or other people, realizing that someone is either full of it or all talk and no follow through. And it's really going to come to a head on Tuesday because Mars forms a square, which is a 90-degree angle with Neptune. Neptune is the planet of ideals. So what you're going to notice in yourself and other people is any ways in which people are just all talk and no follow through. And those realizations are really, really important because it is, you know, we give ourselves, we give other people a million chances, but when it comes down to it, talk is cheap. It's all about action. And so that realization that maybe either yourself or people around you are not actualizing their potential or not following through on their ideals or their promises or dreams, it's going to come to a head on Tuesday the 3rd. What happens immediately after on the 4th is that Mars moves into Cancer. And when Mars, the planet of action, moves into Cancer, there is a lot of feeling behind all that it is that we do. We approach ourselves, our choices, our actions with a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. And sometimes, sometimes we need those moments of something feeling like a final straw, or hitting our limit with people who are like, yeah, I'll do the thing, but not actually doing the thing. Or telling you one thing and doing something completely different behind your back. that is the theme of this week, is kind of really taking a realistic perspective on whether or not we are honorable and integral, and whether or not we can count on the people around us to be honorable and integral. And so there is going to be a sense of urgency or tension around Tuesday, Wednesday, and that tension, that urgency is likely to catalyze choices or decisions or actions when Mars moves into Cancer that might actually be compelled and propelled by big emotions. So please do be prepared, especially Wednesday, Thursday, to feel overwhelmed by your emotions. And I want to just give you a heads up, because sometimes making decisions or taking action from a place of big emotions is not always the best idea. So really do contemplate before you throw yourself in a new direction, before you take drastic action. Just kind of give yourself a hot minute to think about whether or not the thing that you're thinking about doing is actually going to have the effect that you want it to have. We have to think clearly, and it's going to be really hard to think clearly Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, September 5th, the moon joins Venus in Libra. So we are going to have a bit of a fresh air, a nice kind of peaceful breeze come through our lives Thursday, Friday, September 5th and 6th. Now, September 7th, Mercury forms a square to Uranus. Mercury at that time is going to be in the last degrees of Leo. So there is a big risk on September 7th, on or around September 7th, where people are going to be speaking from a very either selfish or egotistical or limited perspective. Because when Mercury, representing perspective and communication, is moving through the very last degrees of Leo, it is going to catalyze a bit of a vibe that is like an impetuous child. Like a child who didn't get what they want, and now they want to throw a temper tantrum and ruin everybody's day. Could be you. It could be the people around you, but please do be aware, just so that you don't get sucked into or start any unnecessary ego battles right around the 7th or the 8th. And because what I wanted to add is that it's going to get really complicated, because on the day that Mercury squares Uranus, the moon moves into Scorpio. So there's going to be a lot of really big feelings, including potentially feelings of jealousy, anger, to the point of rage. And again, we are all going to be a wee bit blind to how we might be actually causing the problem. And there's going to be a tendency to point the finger outwards and say, oh no, it's not me, it's them, it's that, it's this, right? So just a heads up, big egos and big emotions on September 7th and 8th. Now, September 8th, the sun in Virgo forms an opposition to Saturn in Pisces. And again, we come back to this really sober and serious perspective. When the sun is moving through Virgo, like I said, there is a highlight on health and wellness, but especially mental health. And when there is an opposition to Saturn, which is very heavy and serious, we may feel as though we don't have many options because we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, or we are struggling with our mental health, but we have schedules, we have duties, we have responsibilities that we feel maybe we can't escape from. And so there is going to be a bit of either a heaviness or depression around September 8th and September 9th. Especially because on the 8th, Mercury forms a challenging angle to Neptune. So that's really that is the day that Mercury is in the last degrees of Leo. That is pity party. I'm just going to be blunt. The energy of Mercury in conjunct Neptune on Sunday, September 8th is a solid pity party. And I will meet you there. I'm just kidding. Every single one of us is going to be subjected to these astrological influences, right? And we can enter in going, oh no, I'm not going to get sucked into that. But we're humans, right? We're all going to be subjected to these same influences. Be prepared to have a pity party on or around September 8th. What happens on September 9th is Mercury moves home to Virgo. And so it is going to be like a light switch kind of shift in the influence, in the vibe and everything. Mercury moves home into Virgo, meaning that the ego battles will be in the rear view mirror, and it will be easier for you to just take space and say, you know what, if this person or this situation is annoying me, I'm just going to put on headphones. I'm just going to go about my life and not even get sucked in, because life's too short to be stuck in drama, right? So it's going to be a lot easier to focus on whatever problems or whatever solutions are within our grasp. It's going to be way easier starting September 9th. And adding to the lifting of the spirits, the moon will move into Sagittarius, adding a lightheartedness, a willingness to just like laugh it off or shake it off. It's going to be way easier to just kind of roll with it by then. And so then on Wednesday, September 11th, Venus forms a challenging angle to Saturn, and Mercury forms a supportive angle to Mars. So by September 11th, it's going to be easier for us to just shut out or ignore or let go of the things that are really bringing us down or driving us crazy, and just kind of take that space, put your phone on do not disturb. You do not owe anybody a response if they are just trying to suck you into an argument or drama. It's going to be way easier to just focus on whatever it is that you need to do in order to live your best life. The moon moves into Capricorn that day. It's going to be way easier to focus on, okay, I just need to do this work. I'm just going to tune out distractions. I'm going to get some stuff done. If you can focus on being positive and productive around September 11th, that is the best way to utilize the energy at that time. Thursday, September 12th, the sun forms a square to Jupiter. We're going to be challenging ourselves to grow, but with optimism, with gratitude, with excitement. Kind of like setting a goal for yourself and having fun following through, right? Instead of being like, oh, I have to do the thing, it's going to be like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be proud of myself, and it's going to make my life so much better. So yeah, on Thursday, September 12th, Sun forming a square to Jupiter is actually a good little kick in the bum, in the sense that we will be more motivated to make positive, constructive changes without feeling like there's a heavy cloud over you. And ironically, Friday the 13th, there isn't really anything astrologically happening of note. The moon squares Venus and forms a trine to Sun and Uranus. Friday the 13th actually looks like really good vibes, honestly. Like I said, you know, this imposed sense that Friday the 13th is bad is actually just, it is actually just a part of the patriarchal domination of society and the way that they stole traditions away from women. So trust me, Friday the 13th is actually awesome. And by Saturday the 14th, the moon moves into Aquarius, really kind of closing the 2-week period with an ability to rise above and not get sucked in. Now, I did mention in the intro, we are going to have a full moon lunar eclipse in September. It is going to be on September 17th, and it is going to be really highlighting me versus we. And it's going to be a time of letting go of any ways that we let people get in the way of our dreams, or we let people bring us down. It is going to be a time of releasing and letting go of any of the chains that bind us, both psychologically and literally. So do be prepared. You know, if you can do the hard work this month, if you can be humble in your reflections and honest in your self-assessment, this can be a profoundly useful 2 weeks. And by the time the full moon lunar eclipse happens, you're going to be ready to bless and release. So that's the general overview that I've got for you guys. I am going to set up now for the individual horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs. I am covering quite a bit of stuff just because this is a 2-week period, and I just want to make sure I covered everything. Yeah, okay. We're starting here. Okay. I'm gonna put this under here so that I can write on it without the pen going through the table. Okay, yeah, Uranus retrograde, Pluto into Capricorn, new moon in Virgo, Mars square Neptune, Mars moves into Cancer. There is a lot happening over the next 2 weeks. I'm gonna get my little timer set up here. Okay, starting with Aries, Aries sun and rising. Welcome to your horoscopes. Now, Uranus retrograde is happening in your second house of resources and values. And anytime Uranus is retrograde, what we're doing is we are noticing some sort of external change happening, and it catalyzes an internal change. So when Uranus is retrograde in your second house, you may be noticing maybe that financial resources are a little bit more challenging to come by. And as a result, instead of feeling down on yourself, maybe adjust your expectations, maybe take the opportunity to go, you know what? Living a simple life is actually awesome. I don't need to have the moon and the stars. As long as I have my family, as long as I have my pets or whatever it is, you know, it's about rethinking what makes life feel complete and what it is that helps you feel fulfilled. And there's a really supportive relationship between Uranus and Pluto happening. Pluto stepping backwards into your 10th house of career and long-term goals. On the outside, it may feel as though you are having to adjust to expectations not being met. You may have to just kind of take a sober look at your long-term goals and go, you know what? You know, for example, I always wanted to buy a house, but it is very clear in today's economy that is never going to happen. Your initial emotional response may be one of big grief, but if you are able to look around and go, you know what, that's okay. Being a renter means that if some expense comes up, I just call somebody. I don't have to deal with it, right? If you can just find little ways to be grateful for how your life is, instead of letting the overwhelming grief of your dreams not coming through or your goals not being met, you know, many times in our human lives, we will be faced with a choice. Either I laugh about this or I cry about this. And if I start crying, I might not be able to stop. And I really want to validate for you, your feelings are valid, right? But we are faced with this choice right now of where do I want to let my feelings take me? And if my feelings are going to take me to a really, really crappy place, I might not just want to go there. Right? So as much as you can, when faced with the decision of either I laugh or I cry, sometimes injecting humor into life is one of the healthiest possible things we can do, right? And the new moon in Virgo activating your 6th house of daily routines and health is going to really put a highlight on the choices that you make and the ways in which you either take control of your headspace or let your thoughts run away without you. So there is going to be kind of this realization as you surf some really big emotions, especially in the beginning of September, realizing, you know what, if I let these feelings overtake me, I might not be able to get up again. So as much as you can, focus on being the healthiest individual you can. Focus on making sure that your attachments and expectations are reasonable. And if you're finding that your long-term goals are just not happening, maybe just kind of take a step back. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but adjust your expectations, adjust your dreams accordingly to a way that you still feel like you're going in a good direction, but maybe just a touch of a step back from how lofty your goals used to be, right? Every now and then we have to recalibrate, and it doesn't mean that those future ideas are completely out of the question, but setting smaller baby steps for yourself now is going to lead to a higher level of satisfaction moving forwards. Now, Mars in your 3rd house, just kind of reaching the end of your 3rd house, is creating a square with Neptune in your 12th house. And what that means is that you may be looking at your social connections. You may be experiencing something that I go through a lot, which is comparison is the thief of joy. As you talk to friends, as you connect with coworkers, as you observe your neighbors, your community, You might have these moments, especially over the first week of September, where you look at other people and go, they look happy, how come I'm not? They look successful, how come I'm not? They bought a house, how come I can't? You know what I mean? Ooh, if we get sucked into that whole game of comparison, we will make ourselves freaking miserable. Let me tell you, I do it too much. So as Mars moves through the final degrees of Gemini, do be mindful of how you narrate your life. Be mindful of the things that you say about yourself, about your dreams. Don't be your own worst enemy, because that's definitely going to be a risk right now. And then Mars moves into Cancer. Mars moves into Cancer on Wednesday, September 4th. And it is going to kind of put that shift away from comparing yourself to other people and redirect your energy, your action, your choices towards being emotionally healthy. It is way more important for you to love yourself, love your life, love where you live, instead of feeding a narrative that things are not good enough or you're not good enough. The biggest risk for you guys is making yourselves miserable this week. And then as we move into the second week of September, there's going to be a completely different shift in energy. Mercury in Leo is going to form a square to your Uranus in your second house. So you're going to be presented with opportunities to see the joy and see the beauty in your everyday life, whether it be playing with your kids or playing with your pets or having an opportunity to be playful and nurture your own inner child. There are going to be many, many opportunities for joy and play in the second half of, or the second week of September. So if you find yourself being a little bit of a stick in the mud, like, oh, I don't want to because I'm in a crappy mood, let yourself be loved. Let yourself laugh, because laughter really is the best medicine in the whole wide world. When the sun forms in opposition to Saturn towards the 8th and the 9th, you may feel as though you are really struggling against the current. You may feel as though life is pushing you in a different direction than you wanted to be. Now, I'm not saying stop swimming, but I am suggesting on some level, see what you can do to observe and just notice. You know, if we have been pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to try and make something happen in one particular direction, and we just keep hitting brick walls, maybe take a second to look around and go, is there a door somewhere else? Is there a bridge? Is there a second or a third or a fourth way through? Sometimes we're so persistent in one direction and drive ourselves crazy that we don't even realize that an open door is waiting for us just next to us. So do kind of pause and reflect if it feels like you're up against insurmountable odds or unseen forces. Just pause and reflect for a second and open up your peripheral vision and just see, okay, is there a different way that I could be doing things? Is there a different opportunity that would be more lucrative than what it is that I'm doing now? And if so, maybe I should redirect my energy, right? As much as you can, approach with laughter, approach with love. Try not to take yourself or other people too seriously. No one is getting out of here alive, right? So please do see what you can do to inject as much laughter as possible into your day-to-day life. Now, Mercury is going to move back into Virgo, let's see, September 9th. And at that time forms a really supportive angle to Mars, which is going to be freshly in Cancer. So again, focusing on nurturing yourself, focusing on meeting your emotional needs, focusing on living your best life, no matter what anybody else in the world is doing. Living your best life is going to be a path of emotional fulfillment and emotional safety, not buying the big things, I promise you. And when the sun forms a square to Jupiter on the 12th, you're going to realize that you have so much to be proud of, and the people in your life, your friends, your work connections, whatever it is, they're actually quite jealous of what you have. And sometimes we don't see it because we're so focused on how jealous we are of what other people have, that it's not until we have moments like this towards the 12th and the 13th where somebody's going to be like, man, I wish I had your life. I wish I had the success that I see. I wish I had your happy relationship. And then you're going to go, what? Other people are actually jealous of me? It might blow your mind, but this is the perspective you need to see. Because if you're always thinking that other people have it better, this is going to be a blessing for you to see that other people feel that way about you. Funny stuff. So, like I said, laugh as much as you can. Good luck over the next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you just before the full moon lunar eclipse. I'm going to be doing new horoscopes on the 15th, so definitely come back for that. I appreciate you. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you soon. Taurus Sun and Taurus Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We start off this month with a bang, and Uranus goes retrograde in your sign, really kind of hammering home any personal path of evolution and transformation that you have been embracing over the last few years. Now, Uranus moves really, really slow. Obviously, it's been in your sign since like forever. And you may feel as you yourself have been under the microscope or really under the gun as far as pressure to change, pressure to evolve, pressure to, make whatever sweeping changes you need to in your life in order to align with your highest good and your highest path. You may have a few moments over the next couple of weeks of feeling like, oh my God, is it ever gonna end? And yes, this too shall pass. What I want to say to you guys is that even if you feel as though you're having the worst kind of deja vu, like same shit over and over, or same type of issues coming up in your life, I just want to encourage you to take a step back if something like that happens. And I want you to see that you're not back at square one. That no matter how long you live on this planet, it is going to be a lot of the same shit. But what changes is you. And when Uranus is retrograde, it is going to highlight for you that the biggest changes you have experienced are the ones that are inside of yourself. And even if you observe outside of yourself repeating patterns of BS, your ability to take a step back and not get sucked in, that's what's changed. Your ability to see your self-worth and not let anybody tell you differently, that's what's changed. So even if it feels like there's something repeating, do your best to notice how you are taking a different approach. You are taking a different strategy. And as a result of that, the outcome is going to be completely different. With Uranus retrograde in your first house and Pluto retrograde in your 9th house, a lot of it is going to come down to your belief systems and whether or not you need to stick around to fix the thing or whether or not you need to just walk away. Because sometimes we get lost in drama or BS because we keep trying to have a conversation with someone who's bound and determined to misunderstand us, and there is no possibility of progress. And in those situations, what we need to do is just walk away and not feed the fire. Although there are other situations in your life in which you have been subjected to really challenging situations, and because you didn't believe that things could be better, because you had a lower sense of your own self-worth, you stuck around and suffered through it. And in those situations, there might be opportunities for you to stand up and go, actually, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going back. I'm not going to keep putting up with your BS anymore. So please do take a minute to kind of recognize whatever themes are coming up for you, especially repeating themes around challenge, conflict, crisis, or evolution. And then see for yourself, how can I approach this differently? So if you've been walking away every time, maybe this is your opportunity to stand strong and say something. Or alternatively, if you've been sticking around and toughing it out, maybe this is time for you to walk away. So only you know, use your best judgment, but I'm here to let you know what sort of themes are coming up. Now, the new moon in Virgo on Monday is going to highlight your 5th house. And your 5th house is all about your inner child and all about the pursuit of joy within your life. And so you may come to the realization that some of your mental health issues are because you have a wounded inner child. Or you might realize that some of your physical health issues are because there isn't enough joy in your life. So the new moon happening on Monday is going to be an awesome opportunity to kind of pause and reflect and see what kind of small but substantial changes you can make in your life that would lead to a better quality of life. And more often than not, it's not something big that we need to do. It's about something very small that, if repeated every day, would create massive change within your life. It does have to do with being healthy of mind, body, and spirit. And it does have to do with something small that is repeated on a daily basis. Now, Mars at the very last degrees of Gemini, Tuesday the 3rd, is going to be activating your 2nd house. And you may find yourself being very, very frustrated with someone or something where you thought you had shared values. And then it turns out that they're either full of it or just stringing you along. This is going to come to a head around, like I said, Tuesday the 3rd, because Mars forms a square to Neptune. Neptune's in your 11th house. You may find yourself profoundly disappointed with either someone in your life or someone in your community that you either looked up to or counted on, or you were waiting for them to follow through and then they never did. And you might find that you have to take on whatever it was that was supposed to be done. So do be prepared over the next couple of days to feel either frustrated or let down or disappointed. Something along the lines of talk is cheap and there's a lack of follow through. It could also be you. You could also realize that maybe you've let somebody down because you didn't follow through on something that you were going to do. Either way, when Mars moves into Cancer on Wednesday the 4th, there's an opportunity to either try again, try a different strategy, or you might find that the time has come for you to speak your truth. So however it plays out, when Mars moves into Cancer, it is going to be moving through your 3rd house of communication and close circle people. That could be personal or professional connections. But do be mindful that the frustration over the next couple of days is going to lead to emotions coming out through your words. They may or may not be professional ways of speaking about your emotions. Your emotions might color your communication to a point that you actually repel those that you want in your life rather than bringing them in. So it's going to be most important for your sign in particular to think before you speak. I want to make sure that you remember your feelings are valid, but what we say or what we do with those feelings, that's where sometimes we get a little bit lost. So do consider how you can be eloquent and effective with your communication in a way that opens doors rather than closing them. Now, in the 2nd week of September, Mercury hits the final degrees of Leo and forms a square to Uranus. So again, for you guys in particular, Taurus Sun and Taurus Rising, your emotional health is going to be the highlight over the next couple of weeks, because there's a very high likelihood, especially on the September 7th, of you speaking from a really emotional, really hurt place. And in doing so, either burning a bridge or very effectively catalyzing change, but not necessarily in a healthy or sustainable way. Sometimes when we let loose on built up resentment, the other person doesn't even necessarily understand where we're coming from. So again, it's really important, especially if there's big emotions, to perhaps even collect your thoughts or write down your talking points before you end up in a face-to-face situation. Because if you don't prepare, if you don't rein yourself in, it is very likely that you could burn some bridges. Sometimes that's fun. Sometimes it needs to be done. But if that's not your goal, you're going to want to prepare ahead of time. Now, when the sun forms in opposition to Saturn on the 8th, September 8th, that could be one of those moments where you go, oh my God, I acted really childishly, or that was not the professional energy that I wanted to bring to the table. So you might be hit with really solid regret if you did not plan ahead before this event. So the big time that you want to be careful of is September 7th to September 9th. Now, by September 9th, Mercury moves into its home at Virgo. And so at that time, it's going to be easier for you to take personal responsibility for your health, wellness, and happiness. The risk before that is basically handing over power, handing over responsibility to other people and saying, okay, I can't be happy because of these other people. Whereas every step of the way, and then finally by the 9th, you're going to realize, wait a minute, I didn't need to hand over the power of my mental health to those people. I didn't need to see them as responsible for my happiness. I can cut myself off from them. I can be a sovereign individual and leave them in the dust, right? So everything is going to become really, really, really clear as far as your health, wellness, and opportunities for joy starting around September 9th. So if you could just make it to that point, then it's going to be easier to establish what your next best steps are. And then when the sun forms a square to Jupiter on the 12th of September, you're going to have an easier time putting into practice daily opportunities or daily affirmations that support your mental health, that encourage an attitude of gratitude or a life of seeing the beauty, seeing the joy in all of the little things, right? So yeah, for the first part of September, it is going to feel very heavy and overwhelming, lots of big emotions. But if you can make it to the 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th, it will be a lot easier for you to see what your highest path is. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. I will see you again on the 15th as we prepare for a full moon lunar eclipse. Mwah! Take care, and I'll see you next time. Gemini Sun and Gemini Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There has been a lot of energetic focus from you guys because Mars has been moving through your sign. And for that reason, you may have felt extra empowered, extra energetic, because Mars brings a very high level of physical and mental energy, any part of the chart that it touches. Now, the thing is, though, Uranus retrograde in your 12th house and Pluto popping back into Capricorn into your 8th house is going to bring this overwhelming sense at the beginning of the month that some sort of big pattern keeps repeating itself in your life. And even though you're going to have this sense or an awareness that this pattern has existed for quite some time, what's going to shift for you is that it's going to feel intolerable, and it's going to feel like something that you want to achieve some sort of final and binding resolution. And so you may be at a loss for what the appropriate next best steps are. You may feel so emotionally overwhelmed that the new moon in Virgo on Monday is going to really kind of pinpoint the ways in which either you yourself are not being a healthy individual, or maybe you're just going to realize that your emotions or something in your day-to-day life, something in the foundation of your life is just not the ideal that it could be. Like I said, for a lot of you, it's just going to feel like an intolerable irritation with the way that things are. And the more that you can take a step back and observe instead of absorbing, there are going to be lots of opportunities for you to get clarity. If you can be really humble and really honest in your self-assessment, it's going to be easier for you to see not only what the repeating pattern is, but how you are possibly perpetuating that problem. It's going to be a common experience for everyone, every sign, over the next little bit, to have realizations of, oh, when I point the finger outwards, 3 are pointed inwards, right? So any of those kinds of reflections, please do embrace the opportunity to be humble and honest in your self-assessment, because the more you can be humble and honest, the more a very clear pathway is going to open up towards resolution. But if we are blind to the ways in which we are perpetuating problems, we are never going to solve the problem, because everywhere we go, the problem is going to follow us, right? So after the new moon, we have this basically 2-week opportunity to kind of get clear on what our healthiest path is before a lunar eclipse in mid-September. So as much as we can, if we can do the hard work now, it's going to pay off in spades by the middle of the month. Mars at the final degrees of Gemini does form a square to Neptune around the 3rd, September 3rd. And it's going to be one of those tough love moments where you realize that you are part of the problem. But like I said, if you can just take responsibility, it's a very human thing. Don't feel bad, right? As soon as we know better, we can do better. And that's the point. So by the 3rd, if you can take the information that comes your way, it's going to empower you to make the constructive changes that have been so elusive this whole time. And then when Mars moves into Cancer on the 4th of September, it's going to activate your 2nd house, and it's going to be an opportunity to put all of these lessons, all of these realizations into practice. With Mars moving through your 2nd house, your finances are going to be easier to achieve. It's going to be easier to live your values. It's going to be easier for you to manifest anything at all that you've been desiring or working on or needing, especially when it comes to money and accessible resources, tangible achievements. And then when Mercury at the final degrees of Leo forms a square to Uranus on September 7th, it's going to activate your 3rd and 12th houses. It's going to be an opportunity for you to maybe chat up a friend or some sort of professional support, somebody in your community, and go, hey, I just keep dealing with this repeating problem. And in that conversation, you'll have the opportunity to bring to light solutions that you might not have known about. So there's an opportunity for secrets to be revealed, solutions to be discovered, and pathways of action to finally open up. So definitely, as much as you can, talk about whatever it is that you're dealing with, because it is in those conversations that solutions will become apparent. Around, let's see, September 8th, the Sun forms an opposition to Saturn. In that situation, the Sun in your 4th house is going to really put a highlight on how you are basically a complicated houseplant with feelings. And it is going to be really clear to you where and when your basic human needs are either being met or maybe not being met. You may feel extra emotional, and you may feel as though there's a lot of pressure from the outside world to put those emotions aside and fulfill any duties and responsibilities. If you have been off work for any reason, you will feel pressured to return to work even if you're not ready. And so if that's the case, push back as much as you can. If you are currently employed and just really struggling to keep up with the schedule that you have, it is going to come to a peak around September 8th, in which point you might realize that you need to take a mental health break in order to avoid burnout. All that I can say is any ways in which you realize that you do not have a healthy foundation from which to thrive, as much as you can, full stop, address the issues. Don't push yourself to burnout. Don't push yourself to fulfill duties and responsibilities if it's going to have a detrimental effect on your well-being. And then when Mercury moves into Virgo on September 9th, it's actually going to activate your 4th house and create a supportive angle with Mars in your 2nd house. So what we see in that transition around the 9th of September is that if you prioritize your wellness, it's actually going to pay off to better money, better job satisfaction, and a better quality of life. So of course we always have this feeling that we have to hustle, we have to burn ourselves out, right? It's just kind of this toxic part of society these days. But what we see with black and white clarity is that for you guys in particular, I mean, every human ever, but for you guys in particular, choosing to support your emotional needs is the pathway to more money, more access to resources, and more life satisfaction, job satisfaction. And then on the 12th, when the sun forms a square to Jupiter, it's gonna really kind of put everything into perspective as far as whether or not your belief systems are supporting a healthy lifestyle, whether or not your belief systems are causing you to be miserable, and where and when you can change your mind and effectively change your life. So stay open to new information, stay open to conversations, and solutions will become apparent. I hope you guys have an amazing couple of weeks. I will see you on the 15th, and we will be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse next time. Mwah. Take care out there. I'll see you next time. Cancer Sun and Cancer Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. You guys are about to get supercharged because in the next couple of days, Mars moves into your sign, which leads to a higher level of personal energy and drive to overcome. So I'm going to walk you through it. We do start the month with Uranus going retrograde in your 11th house, forming a supportive trine to Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto is going to tiptoe into the very last degrees of Capricorn and then come back out by November. But for the time being, what you're going to realize is that maybe you want to take a step back from interacting with large crowds, being active in your community, things like that. And you're going to want to kind of simplify your approach, simplify your relationships and your connections, and you're going to be much more inclined to only deal with people either in very, very small groups or small settings or just one-on-one connections. You're going to find that that's your comfort zone. You're going to find that, excuse me, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel burnt out, large crowds are just going to set you off and drain your energy. And so just kind of sticking to small, intimate settings is going to be way more your speed, especially over the next few weeks, even few months. So on that note, with the new moon in Virgo on Monday, activating your third house of close connections, that is going to be the theme for you over the next little bit, is kind of where and when do you feel truly, truly safe to be yourself? Sometimes if you've got this peak of energy and you're feeling like you're on top of the world, sometimes you will be more social or be more active than usual. But typically your baseline is to want to kind of have small, intimate connections because sometimes you're just really overwhelmed by large groups of people. Now, the difference was that over the last few months, you were feeling like, okay, let's go. I could be more social than usual. I could do more stuff out in public than usual. That is going to come to a grinding halt with those two planets going retrograde. And so the new moon in Virgo on Monday is going to highlight, like I said, where and when do you feel really, really, really safe? And you might feel motivated to kind of take a very sobering look at your personal and professional connections and maybe make some choices, or maybe start just quietly withdrawing your energy if it becomes apparent through assessment that these connections just aren't in your highest good. And it all has to do with supporting your mental health and encouraging you to live your best life when it comes to healthy habits, healthy choices, staying away from toxic people, staying out of drama. Things like that, right? You guys are such sensitive, heart-centered beings that you really don't have the energy to deal with BS. And that's going to just become really, really, really apparent, especially on Monday. And anytime we have a new moon, like we have on Monday, it does set the tone for the next 2 to 4 weeks. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have a full moon lunar eclipse. It is going to be activating the Aries, Libra. No, wait. It is going to be in Virgo. Wow. It's going to be the first eclipse on the Pisces Virgo axis. Interesting. Sorry, just thinking out loud as I'm saying this. So basically it's going to be about really taking stock over the next 3-4 weeks of, you know, where and when do you feel as though the company you keep is elevating your experience and inspiring you to live your best life, right? And if any of those connections, personal or professional, make you feel as though you have to have walls up, those are the ones you're going to abandon in a hot minute. So with Mars forming a square to Neptune on the 3rd, Tuesday the 3rd, Mars is moving through the final degrees of Gemini. And so for you guys, it's going to be your 12th house. You're going to feel some sort of a frantic or urgent, what's the word? You're going to feel frantically or urgently compelled to either speak your truth, let some sort of cat out of the bag, or set a boundary with a personal or professional connection. And it's because Mars moving through the final degrees of Gemini brings an urgency to our communication, an urgency to our reflections around the company that we keep. Because it's moving through your 12th house, it's about secrets. It's about things being hidden. It's about maybe you've been so polite for so long that you've just had it and somebody's about to hear what you really think, right? It could come through in a lot of ways. But basically, with Neptune being in your 9th house, anything that you feel urgently about is going to be along the lines of, do I feel as though this is a healthy connection? Do I feel as though the company I keep is aligning me with my ideals? And if not, what can I do about it, right? So it is empowering, it is enlightening, but it might be shocking to the people in your life. Now, when Mars moves into Cancer, on Wednesday, September 4th, that brings, Mars is actually going to be in Cancer for quite some time because it's going to spend almost 2 months moving through Cancer, then it's going to jump into Leo, it's going to go retrograde and come back into Cancer. So there's going to be a really big highlight on who you are, what action you take in your life, and how do you go about living your life? How do you go about actualizing your dreams and your ideals? So this is only the beginning. It is going to empower you to be stronger. It's going to empower you to set more boundaries and be way more clear about who you like, who you don't like, what you want to do in your life, what you don't want to do in your life. And so it might feel a little bit overwhelming, but it is going to lead to huge constructive change if you let it. Now, when Mercury at the very final degrees of Leo forms a square to Uranus on September 7th, that is going to be another one of those moments where you're going to be like, okay, I'm looking at the world around me and I'm wondering, what can I do to make a difference? And are the people in my life aligning with ideals? Are the people in my life taking action the way that I want to take action? And if not, maybe I don't want to keep that company anymore. You may feel more compelled than usual to stand up for yourself, to set boundaries, and to speak your truth. And like I said, it's going to be good for you, but it might be shocking to the people in your life, especially if you don't usually speak up, right? But everybody has their moment. Now, the sun is going to form an opposition to Saturn on September 8th. Really, again, the focus for you guys over the next 2 weeks is all about your belief systems, all about your headspace, and the question of whether or not that is reflected in the company that you keep. It's so important to you to be able to have heart-centered conversations and to feel safe to spill your guts with the people in your life. And so anywhere that doesn't feel safe, you're going to want to put up a brick wall. Anywhere in which you feel like people are all talk and no follow through, you're going to be done with them. So it really does come down to taking action along the lines of really kind of clearing out any yuck in your life, tightening those personal and professional circles, and then aligning yourself with your highest path. It's going to be amazing, but it's going to be very transformational. Expect change, right? And then when Mercury moves into Virgo, it is going to activate your 3rd house, and it's going to create a supportive angle to Mars in your 1st house. So this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of you like really bringing your truth through and then taking action based on what you believe, based on what feels healthy for you. You're no longer going to be worried about making other people happy. It's going to be a very liberating experience. You might even shock yourself. But as much as you can, honor your feelings, honor your truth. And as Dr. Seuss said, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter won't mind. So I hope you guys have an amazing couple of weeks. I will see you on the 15th. We will be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse coming up on the 17th. Good luck out there. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Mwah. Leo Sun and Leo Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There's a whole lot happening over the next couple of weeks, and what other people might perceive as unlucky could be really lucky for you. Let's dig in. Uranus is retrograde in your 10th house, but it's forming a really supportive angle to Pluto, which is just back into Capricorn, which is your 6th house. And what that all means is that you may be noticing either your situation, your environment, or the conditions within your life have changed drastically. And what that is leading to is you have to recalibrate your direction moving forwards accordingly. Right? Whatever worked for previous generations has absolutely no footing now because the world is completely different. Plans that you might have made a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago might not even apply anymore because so much has changed globally, personally, everything, right? And so one of the biggest things that you're going to be experiencing as September begins is quite possibly a lot of really big emotions as you come to some hard realizations about how your long-term plans need to be adjusted accordingly, right? If you are too stubborn and keep trying to actualize something that doesn't apply anymore, or keep trying to live a lifestyle that is no longer feasible, then you're only going to create problems for yourself. When Uranus is retrograde, as it's going to be for the next 3-4 months, it's really important to just kind of go with the flow instead of resisting change. And that's where Pluto freshly into Capricorn actually helps you out, because it empowers you to make small changes, either to your daily lifestyle, to your habits, or to what you think inside of your head. And the more that you can kind of be your own life coach and be like, okay, it's cool, no worries, I can adjust my plans, I can adjust my dreams and goals, it's not the end of the world. You know, have some positivity behind it, have some excitedness behind it, right? And in that pathway, you're going to be able to manifest health, wealth, abundance, anything it is that you want. But one thing is undeniable, and that is previous plans no longer apply. So the sooner you get on board with that, the sooner you can readjust. With the new moon in Virgo on Monday, it is activating your 2nd house of finances, tangible resources, and values. So that's where the emotional piece comes in. This new moon on Monday, it's not lighthearted. It is very sober and very serious. But if you can use the energetic opportunity just to take a realistic look at what's in front of you, the more realistic you can be about where you're at and where your life is at, the more realistic your plans moving forwards will be, the more healthy and the possibility of being able to actualize your dreams is going to be way better if you can just be realistic, right? So you may find that you have to live minimally. You may find that you have to make little adjustments in your spending. But as long as you're still aligning with who you want to be on an idealistic frame of mind, then it's not a huge compromise or change at all. But what you're going to need to take a step backwards, what might feel more challenging for some of you guys out there, is if you have attached yourself to some form of identity. So for example, if part of your identity is wearing really expensive clothes, but more and more and more you're in debt, then you have to go, okay, realistically, I can't spend like that anymore. The only emotional turmoil you would experience is from if you see yourself as somebody who spends money or wears expensive things, right? It may seem simple, but if you're in the thick of it, it could feel really overwhelming. It could even feel life-shattering. So as much as you can, you just got to tighten that belt. You've got to be realistic about not living beyond your means. And if you can focus on making appropriate constructive changes, you'll get through this no problem. And you'll be able to reach a different point down the road where you do have that money, you do have that ability, right? But we have to adjust our sails as if we were a sailboat. We have to adjust our sails accordingly, depending on the current conditions, right? That's the connection that we need to make. So with Mars in the final degrees of Gemini on September 3rd, forming a square to Neptune in the 8th house, that is where we see hints of feeling like you are drowning in debt. Or feeling as though, you know, for some of you, it could be that you're in a partnership and one person is spending more money than the other. There is going to be a part of struggling to realize what it is that you do have control over, or what ways in which you can empower yourself to make constructive changes. If any part of the power lies in the hands of others, that is going to lead to conflict that will need to be resolved. Communication is the key. But the risk for you guys is that when Mars moves into Cancer on September 4th, it's going to be moving into your 12th house, and the 12th house represents that which is hidden. So in one way or another, there is going to be a need over the next few months to be more transparent in the action that you take. And you're going to be asking that from the people in your life. Whether it's a partner or a coworker or a business associate, you're going to be asking them, be more transparent in what you're doing and what you're spending money on, in what your intentions are. Everybody needs to be on the same page, and communication is going to be key. It's also a time of wanting to actualize your dreams, though. You know, if you feel like you've hit some sort of a dead end personally or professionally, this could be the moment where you're like, all right, I had some dream stashed off in a closet. Now is the perfect time to take action on it, right? This is a great time to have a plan B, C, or D. And then when Mercury at the final degrees of Leo forms a square to Uranus on the 7th of September, you may have a realization that it's actually you that's in your own way. But again, you know, this is going to be a very common experience for everyone. It's not just your sign. Just having hard realizations of how we are the root of our own problems 99% of the time. The more that we can just humbly accept that, the easier it is to make constructive change, right? Again, full transparency, yourself and everybody else. Now, the sun is going to form in opposition to Saturn on September 8th. The sun in your second house is going to highlight how you feel like you are aligning with your ideals. But the opposition formed with Saturn in the 8th house is going to be this kind of vague sense that something's hanging over your head. It could be the knowledge that you need to be less frivolous with your money or your intentions. It could be the realization that you need to get your debt in check. Or it could also be the realization that you're not getting any younger, and that any lifestyle habits, any choices, any ways in which you spend your time or your money need to be adjusted accordingly to reflect the fact that you're not young. You can't afford to do it. Your body can't take it, whatever it is, right? The Saturn being in your 8th house is kind of like that realization of our own mortality, or that realization that we can't ignore our problems forever. So one way or another, you might feel as though your problems are kind of chasing you down over the next couple of weeks. But as much as you can, if you can just be humble and realistic with your assessments, that is the footwork that we need to do before the full moon lunar eclipse in the middle of the month. This is all just the prequel. So when Mercury moves into Virgo, it's going to form a supportive angle with Mars in Cancer, activating your 2nd and 12th houses. Just encouraging you to keep up a habit of either journaling or therapy or whatever way in which you need to bring honesty and transparency into your life. And in doing so, by sorting out the ethereal, the spiritual, and the metaphysical, in turn, that is going to sort out your physical and reality parts of your life. So as above, so below. You can't run from yourself, and you definitely can't run from debt. So it might feel like a lot of heavy thoughts, but if you can just buckle up and get to business, by the middle of the month, you're going to be laughing about how much has changed and how, like, often before we make a big decision, it's really tense, but then after we make the decision, it's like, man, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner, right? The relief that you're going to experience by making these constructive changes is going to be worth its weight in gold. So just do what you got to do, and it will be fine. Mwah! Thank you guys for being here. Good luck. I will see you in 2 weeks, just before that full moon. And in the meantime, stay safe out there. Bye. Virgo Sun and Virgo Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. It is Virgo season, so happy birthday to any Virgos out there enjoying a birthday. I'm celebrating with you, sending you guys my love. We have a new moon in Virgo on Monday, which is definitely going to affect Virgos and Virgo risings more than any other sign, simply because of the association of taking a huge look at who you are in an all-encompassing kind of way. And depending on anything over the last year that you might have really had brought to your attention, any struggles, any triumphs, this is definitely going to be a time of really taking stock of where you are in the grand scheme of things, and then making any necessary adjustments, any recalibrations to your compass before moving forwards in the next year. So what we've got kind of starting off the beginning of September is that Uranus is now retrograde in Taurus, another earth sign, and Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn, another earth sign. And so we have this trilogy happening right now because Virgo is the third earth sign, where there's a lot of really profound change and profound transformation. You may feel as though there is a disturbance in the force, and you're not wrong. You want to have your eyes, your ears, your mind, and your heart open, because over the next little bit, a lot of information is going to come to you kind of through the ether, through your own heart, and you're going to see reflected in your world the results of the energetic shifts that you've been making. Now, with Uranus retrograde, there is a sense that external changes are catalyzing internal changes. And for every Virgo or Virgo rising, that is activating your 9th house. Now, the 9th house is all about our belief systems. And what you might be kind of circling around is either beliefs that you have come to on your own, or reassessing beliefs that you were taught to believe. This is often a time where people kind of take a step back from dogmatic, structured religious institutions and find more solace, find more meaning in personalized spiritual paths. It's a time of maybe realizing that no book is going to have the answer. No person outside of yourself is going to have the answer. That the answers that you're really looking for are deep within. And so if you're able to really work on trusting your intuition and not outsourcing guidance for your life's big decisions, really ask yourself, how would this feel if I made this choice? And if you find yourself thinking immediately, well, that person might not like it and this person might not like it, full stop. What about you? Would you like it if you made that choice? Start from there, right? And with Pluto being in your 5th house, there is a very strong encouragement to take the power back when it comes to either your inner child or the quality of life that you have, because Pluto represents power and control. The fifth house is about play and joy and creativity. So if you feel as though there isn't enough joy in your life, this is going to be a time of you doing some radical reassessments and going, wait a minute, how can I cultivate more joy and fun in my life? How can I make sure that I like the choices that I'm making, right? Sometimes we forget about that, because Virgos and Virgo risings are happiest when they feel helpful. It is all about acts of service. It's all about, almost like being the scout, being prepared, see a need, fill a need, taking care of everybody else. But this is a time to go deep within and go, am I taking care of myself? And if not, how could I possibly do more of that, right? I need to take care of myself. Just like on an airplane, they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before trying to help other people. So use that metaphor over the next couple of weeks. If you feel hesitant to make choices that benefit you, if you feel hesitant to kind of take a step back from anything that's sucking the energy out of you, think about the metaphor of put your oxygen mask on first before helping somebody else. It's a good metaphor to remember. Now, what's going to happen is Mars is moving through the very last degrees of Gemini. That is your 10th house, and that is your long-term goals and plans for the future. You may feel as though personal or professional connections are making a lot of talk, but not actually following through with action. And so Neptune being in your 7th house of one-on-one relationships, you may feel highly disappointed by the people in your life. You may feel like people are either full of it or stringing you along or blatantly lying to your face or manipulating you. There is a very high likelihood over the next couple of days of reaching a place of rage or resentment when it comes to people behaving in a dishonorable way. The energy implied by this particular configuration really just points in the direction of realizing that you just can't trust certain people, and you need to take any information on that basis. You need to take it as like truth and fact and work accordingly. This is not a time of receiving information like that and then giving people the benefit of the doubt. No. If people show you who they are, believe them and act accordingly. Do not give anybody the benefit of the doubt unless they have explicitly earned it. Otherwise, aim for clarity and act accordingly. When Mars moves into Cancer on the 4th of September, is going to be activating your 11th house instead of your 10th. And so it is going to become more important to you to live a life full of meaning than to live a life full of money. Everybody needs money, obviously. But while Mars has been moving through Gemini over the last couple of months, there has been a huge focus on the hustle. What can you do to fulfill duty and responsibility? What can you do to hustle? What can you do to set yourself up with a paycheck, right? And although there's a time and a place for everything, it is a very exhausting energy to live in. So what's going to shift for you is realizing that how you feel is far more important. And so working on your emotional health, working on having a healthy, solid foundation from which you can thrive is going to involve taking maybe a little bit more time off than you're used to. Maybe you need to take mental health breaks. Maybe you need to spend more time with family. Maybe you need more sleep. But the highlight for you over the next couple of months is going to be on living a life full of meaning and approaching your life with emotion and feeling instead of just kind of cold duty and responsibility. You can't do that. At least not right now. So Mercury is going to be moving through the final degrees of Leo. Where are we at? The 7th and the 8th. So that's next weekend. Mercury is going to be moving through the final degrees of Leo. It is going to lead to a lot of ego battles depending on who you're interacting with. So do be mindful of your own ego being activated. And alternatively, if you see people behaving from a very egotistical place, don't even touch that with a 10-foot pole. It is not worth it. People are going to be looking for a fight, and believe me, you don't want to get sucked in. So as much as you can, just kind of take cover, and it may be wiser in a lot of situations over the next couple of days, right around the 7th, 8th, and 9th, it might be wiser to just kind of keep your thoughts to yourself. Observe, but don't absorb, right? Take note and act accordingly, but don't get sucked in. And what's shifting for you is that in the past, it was so easy to get sucked in because you can't stand having somebody think something about you that isn't true. And you would very quickly jump to your defense or the defense of people around you. And what you're realizing is that some people are just bound and determined to either make judgments or misunderstand you. And in those situations, no amount of conversation, no amount of evidence or proof is going to change their minds because they see what they want to see. And in those situations, it is far better to just wash your hands of it and release. Don't even bother, right? Consider the source. That's something I was taught when I was little. Consider the source. If you find yourself getting really upset about what somebody thinks or what somebody says, ask yourself, do I care about that person's opinion? 9 times out of 10, it's a solid no. If it is somebody that you care about their opinion, what's going to happen is that the sun forms an opposition to Saturn on September 8th, and that's where you are going to want to develop some sort of strategy to help you gain footing in any challenging situations in your life. So that's the very small 1% of people where you actually care about their opinion. You're going to want to think of a very strategic approach to conflict resolution. But in those situations, please remember less is more. You're going to have a tendency to want to say a million words when in reality, less is more. And then when Mercury moves home to Virgo on the 9th of September, it is going to be far easier for you to put your thoughts into words. It's going to be way easier for you to be eloquent and effective with your communication. So if possible, delay any major conversations until after September 9th, because at that point, you're going to be on it. It is going to be way easier for you to be clear and effective with your communication. But before that, you will be more likely to be perceived as flying off the handle or full of shit or whatever the case may be. So if you want to be seen in the best possible light, wait until after September 9th. And on that note, the sun forms a square to Jupiter towards the 12th, really kind of highlighting how important it is for you to make choices that make you happy with your path. Don't waste your time making other people happy because they don't live in your life. They don't live in your shoes, right? Make sure that any energy that you typically direct towards like service to others, please make sure that you give that to yourself as well. So I got to wrap this up. I'm kind of talking way too much, but sending you guys all of my love. Happy birthday, any Virgos out there. Thank you for being here. And I will see you on the 15th, where we will be discussing the up and coming full moon lunar eclipse in mid-September. So good luck out there, and I'll see you next time. Mwah. Libra sun and Libra rising, welcome to your horoscopes. Uranus has been retrograde for a while. Pluto just joined the party, and the two of them are retrograde in earth signs, which is really bringing a highlight and a focus to the ways in which we are evolving and growing within our literal physical lives. And because Uranus is retrograde in your 8th house, you may feel as though you need to do a little bit of restructuring or recalibrating when it comes to either the debt that you carry or the financial responsibilities that you might share with another individual. It might be a moment of realizing that the bills coming in the mail are bigger than you expected, or you might have had so much fun this summer that you didn't want to think about expenses, but now it's crunch time and you're having to really kind of take stock of where you stand. But please remember, not all is lost. There's a season, there's a phase to everything, and if debt and shared finances do become a huge focus for you, it is just a great opportunity to either see a financial advisor or work with budgeting in a new way, or maybe just kind of reassess, am I hemorrhaging money in ways that I don't even realize? Did I forget about that Netflix subscription? Did I forget about how Spotify doubled their monthly fee? You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways in which we can kind of pull back on either monthly expenses or something like that and reclaim a little bit of money. But that is kind of the biggest thing that's going to be at your attention and at your feet as September gets rolling. Now, the other thing too, though, is that because Pluto is going to be retrograde in your 4th house for the next little bit, it is very important not to tighten the belt so much that you're miserable and hate your life, right? Despite the fact that we all need to budget, we also all need to have some sort of joy in our lives. So don't suck all the joy out of your life. Do make sure that there are opportunities to rest, to relax, and to recharge. Now, the new moon in Virgo happening on Monday is bringing a focus on health and wellness, specifically for your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is kind of either our higher conscious or our subconscious, but it is the creative corners of our minds. It is the closets in which we sometimes hide skeletons. It can be our dream space. It can be our unrealized aspirations. But basically, the new moon in Virgo is going to be asking you, Libra Sun and Libra Rising, how healthy is your headspace? Because Virgo's energy, anytime we're in Virgo season, there's a huge focus on health and wellness. And of course, the first things we think about are our bodies. The other form of Virgo's health and wellness is mental health. And that's really going to be the highlight for you guys because of the 12th house position of the new moon. Now, if you realize that your headspace is not a safe space and you work to resolve that, it can have a ripple effect of making everything else in your life feel better. You know, you could be the most successful, the most popular person in the world, but if you're beating yourself up inside of your head, you're going to be miserable. And no amount of external success is going to make you happy because you are your own worst enemy. So if you feel deeply unsatisfied or deeply comfortable, the first place to go look is your headspace. Listen to yourself think for a week. What kinds of things do you say about yourself? What kinds of things do you say about other people? Is it a very critical, harsh nature? Or are you approaching things with compassion and patience and love? So definitely lots of good questions to bring up with a therapist or a counselor if you have the opportunity. If you don't have the opportunity, journaling helps, music and art helps, talking to a friend might help as well. But the idea is get it out so that you can look at it clearly. Because the monsters that hide in our heads sometimes feel very, very scary until we shine a light on them and all of a sudden everything feels way more manageable, right? Now, on that note, Mars is completing its journey through your 9th house. Mars represents action, and your 9th house, which has been Gemini right now, is all about how are you taking action based on your belief systems. If you believe really lucky things about yourself, then you're not going to take big leaps because you don't believe you're capable. If you are afraid of failing, you're not going to take action on your dreams because you don't think you're capable. So one of the biggest highlights over the next week is, again, examining your headspace. Make sure that it's a safe space. Make sure that you're speaking to yourself respectfully and honorably. Don't ever say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to a best friend, right? We want to make sure that we're keeping it really kind because even though nobody can hear us, people can feel it. And if you find that you're attracting into your life people who echo or mimic the same crappy things that you say to yourself, that's why. Is because you put that energy out there. But if you set the tone on the inside and speak to yourself with reverence and respect, you're going to see a ripple effect in your life where other people talk to you that way too. So then Mars moves into Cancer. And when Mars moves into Cancer, it moves from your 9th house to your 10th house, giving you an opportunity to take any of those beliefs that you have reformed or recalibrated and now put them into action. Now make it a daily practice to either say mantras or talk to yourself in the mirror with love and respect and dignity. Be your own best cheerleader. And if that feels deeply uncomfortable and weird for you, I challenge you to speak nothing but nice things to yourself for at least a week. And you know what I bet's gonna happen? You're gonna wanna keep it up. Because I did that. I did that a couple of years ago and it changed my life. I was in such a crappy place and I decided that just for shits and giggles, I'd be nice to myself for a week, and it literally changed my life. So give it a try if that's something that is an issue for you. Now moving into the second week of September, Mercury spends its final day in Leo. And there's going to be a really high likelihood of ego battles and power struggles with other people. Because it's happening in your 11th house, there is going to be a highlight on the people in your community, whether it be professional or personal connections. And you might have this moment of being like, what the hell is wrong with people? But again, just be mindful of the energy that you're putting out there, because even if a lot of things aren't said, people feel it and act accordingly. So if you are observing drama, don't get sucked in. If you see repeating patterns that feel toxic or unhealthy, don't get sucked in. It is better to just observe, but not absorb, right? And the other thing that's happening is that the sun in your 12th house forms an opposition to Saturn, and that is on September 8th. So it's going to be one of those moments of realizing, oh my goodness, what is happening up here is reflected out here. If you have any kind of just a little experiment with yourself where you experiment with what's happening up here, by the 8th, you're going to be like, holy crap, it's true. People really do respond to my energy. People really do pick up on my internal dialogue. You're going to see it play out in reality in a way that is going to blow your mind. So definitely try that. And then Mercury moves into Virgo with a supportive angle to Mars in Cancer. So by the end of this 2-week period, around September 9th, 10th, and 11th, it is an opportunity for you to feel far less overwhelmed by your emotions, far less overwhelmed by either the people in your life or the life that you're living. And it's going to be a lot easier around the 9th, 10th, and 11th to start putting into action daily mantras, mental health routines, opportunities to take breaks from people that stress you out. It's going to be way easier to formulate a plan moving forwards that supports your growth, both mental, emotional, and spiritual and physical. So keep your eyes and your ears open in the beginning of the month, and by the middle of the month, if you've done the hard work, if you've been humble and honest with yourself, it's all going to click into place. So I will see you guys on the 15th when I will be doing a full moon horoscope. There's a full moon lunar eclipse in the middle of the month. It's going to be wild. It's your birthday month, or for some of you guys, it's going to be your birthday coming up. So definitely join me in 2 weeks for that one. There's a lot to talk about. Good luck out there, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Oh, it's already on. Scorpio sun and Scorpio rising. Welcome to your horoscopes. We've got a lot to talk about this week, but I'm going to start with how 2 of our outer planets are retrograde right now in Earth signs. And so what you're going to be experiencing over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, is seeing reflected in your physical environment signs of your evolution or signs that progress still needs to be made. Now, Uranus is retrograde in your 7th house. It's been in your 7th house like forever. And so for years now, there's been a huge highlight on the people that are closest to you. Now, this is actually a beneficial influence, because what you're going to see in the people closest to you is that they are finally, or inspirationally, making constructive changes, evolving, transforming, and you might just be standing there in awe and be like, wow, I am so proud of the people in my life for making these healthy changes, for being such an inspiration. And in turn, you may feel inspired by the choices or the changes that they're making. So that's really beautiful. And we can see this theme amplified because Pluto, who is retrograde, has now popped back into the final degrees of Capricorn, and that's your third house. So that's your close circle. So the highlight is, again, across the board, noticing in the people around you either signs of evolution, or you might also conversely be noticing that some people are just so stuck in their ways that you finally give yourself permission to take a step back, to tap out, to bless and release, right? Basically, it's all about wanting to know that, you know, the people in your life, we want to co-inspire each other. We want to support each other. And it becomes a big drag when people are repeating the same problems. Every time you talk to them, they're talking about the same stupid drama. You know, at first it's like, oh, let me help you. And then after a while, it's like, seriously? You're still talking about this? So it's going to be a mix of both experiences, but the odds are more in the favor of you being inspired by other people than feeling like you're dragged down, which is really beautiful. So there's a new moon on Monday, new moon in Virgo, and it's going to be highlighting your 11th house of community, belonging, but also transcendence, excuse me. You may be thinking a lot about the metaphysical. You may be thinking about arts or music, or maybe stepping into some sort of a charity or a social support kind of role. And basically, your heart is being just blown wide open lately, that through circumstances, through changes, through random life events, that your priorities are becoming much more clear. And your priorities are far less in the realm of identity or pride or empty achievements and manifestations. Overwhelmingly, the shifts that are happening for you lately are along the lines of, I want to live a life that is meaningful. I want to leave behind a legacy of love, of music, of art, whatever it is, right? That you don't want to have an empty existence. And so seeking meaning and walking a path of meaning is really the highest priority for you guys. And that is definitely going to be brought to your attention around Monday. Now, the thing about the new moon on Monday, any new moon, is that it sets the tone for the next couple of weeks. And this particular new moon cycle is especially important because in the middle of September, we have a full moon lunar eclipse. So you may have this sense that even though these lessons are things that you've thought about for quite some time, you may feel in this particular time that maybe those lessons feel heavier. Maybe it feels way more important to grasp the concepts or actualize the dreams that you have. And the reason it's going to feel like profoundly more important is because eclipses always do that. They mark times of drastic change. It is far better to be behind the driver's wheel of that change than to feel as though we are being run over by life. You guys, out of all the zodiac signs, do appear to be the most equipped to surf this change. But if at any point you do feel like you're drowning, see what you can to kind of take a step back and ask yourself, am I living my life for me, or am I living my life for other people? In whose name do I make these changes? In whose name do I take this action or live this part of my life, right? And that question in itself might give you the answers that you need. Mars in the final degrees of Gemini is bringing a lot of chatter to your 8th house. You may find that you're having really deep and profound conversations with the people in your life about life, death, universe, everything, spirituality, you know what I mean? Like, really big, crazy conversations, but eye-opening ones, right? Ones that catalyze profound change. You may have had something big happen in your life where you're like, whoa, I've been doing it all wrong. Now I want to make change that really like embraces this awareness of this awakening that I've achieved, right? And when Mars moves into Cancer on September 4th, it's going to move into your 9th house. And it's going to be there for quite some time. It is going to go retrograde later, so it's going to be bouncing around Cancer and Leo for the next little bit, which for you guys is the very top of your chart, which is kind of like due north on a compass. Basically, asking yourself those deep questions, like in whose name do I make these changes? With what feeling am I approaching this aspect of my life? It's going to help you understand yourself, your choices, and your environment way better. Ask those deep questions because there's major realizations waiting for you, and those realizations can change your life. And as they say, change your mind, change your life. And that's what's happening for you guys. Now, Mercury is in the final degrees of Leo in your 10th house. It is going to form a square to Uranus on September 7th. And that could be one of those moments where you realize that you've outgrown somebody in your life. You might realize that somebody's behavior or their energy or their choices are making it harder for you to live your best life. And in that situation, you're going to be like, and bye, we're done. But it's coming from an act of self-preservation. It's coming from a place of, this just isn't working anymore, right? Do try and refrain from overdoing it with judgments or assessments. If you have come to the realization that you need to kind of cut ties with somebody, see what you can do to use minimal words instead of going on the attack, because there is an energy of having that attack come right back to you. So if you need to set boundaries, awesome, but just remember less is more. And don't be afraid to walk away if somebody is just making you miserable or bringing you down. That's okay. You have the right. With the sun forming in opposition to Saturn, it is really this big open-ended question of, am I living my best life? Who am I living my life for? And does it bring joy? You know what I mean? You might bring some of that Marie Kondo cleaning house energy into your entire life. And it's all about the question, does this bring me joy? If not, throw it out. Obviously, not everything in life is going to be fun, but it's an important question to ask, right? And then when Mercury moves into Virgo, it does form a really supportive angle to Mars. So by September 9th, it's going to be way easier for you to surround yourself with people who lift you up, people who inspire you to do your best, people who see the best in you, and people with which you could co-create a technicolor imagination that really expands the quality of your life for the better. So yeah, don't be afraid to seek new company. Don't be afraid to let go of repeating patterns, and don't be afraid to set boundaries when needed. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. I will have new horoscopes on September 15th, where we will be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse happening in the middle of September. In the meantime, do your best to get through this, and all things will become clear. Have a great week, 2 weeks, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Sagittarius Sun and Sagittarius Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. The energy right now, Uranus goes retrograde today. Pluto has been retrograde. It pops into Capricorn. What we've got is two very strong, influential planets making backwards motion in Earth signs. And so what that means is we may feel as though something in our immediate physical environment or in our reality feels as though it's going backwards. However, anything that feels like it's going backwards is going to be an external change that catalyzes internal change. One of the definitions of being a living organism on this earth is the ability to respond and interact with your environment. And so that may become really clear, basically for everyone, but it's going to become clear for you guys in the sense of, if my environment has changed, I need to change. If the conditions with which I am living my life have changed, I need to change. I cannot be static. I cannot be unmoving in a continually moving and evolving universe full of entropy, right? So Uranus is retrograde in your 6th house, indicating that you might be taking a couple steps backwards when it comes to either your day job, your work, or your daily routines. And any evolution that you embrace right now, any change that you take on right now, the idea is living simply, minimizing, and being as effective and eloquent with our choices, with our communication, with the direction that we're going in. With Pluto moving backwards through your 2nd house, there is a very huge focus on finances, especially any resources that are immediately tangible. You may be struggling to pay the bills. You may be struggling to keep your head up with daily, monthly, weekly conditions. And so often when it becomes apparent that things are unsustainable, those are the moments where we have to go deep within and think, okay, do I need to jump off of this sinking ship before I drown? Do I need to make constructive changes? Can I work smarter instead of harder? Can I outsource some duties and responsibilities to free up more time for myself? I'm not going to lie, it's going to be some pretty, whoops, I broke my pen. It's going to be some pretty heavy themes coming your way. But what I want to empower you with is the understanding that you, my friend, are a continually evolving and changing person. And even if you're struggling to find success, you are a successful individual, because your survival rate of hard days is 100%. No matter what has happened in your life, you've lived through it, right? I want to try and pep you up, right? I want to try and, lift you up. And I'm not going to just blow smoke, but I want to help you be realistic, empirical evidence towards your ability to thrive, to succeed, to beat all of the odds and make it through. So even if your obstacles feel insurmountable right now, I promise you, brainstorm, articulate your struggles to anyone that'll listen, crowdsource for help and for inspiration, and this too shall pass. The constructive changes you are about to embrace are going to make your life substantially better. But the theme is that the old ways just aren't working, and it's time to think of new strategies, implement new habits, and that's what's going to make a big difference. Now, on Monday, we have a new moon in Virgo, and that's in your 10th house of career and long-term goals, your desire for a legacy, your desire for success, profound success, right? And the new moon in Virgo is going to be inviting you to kind of recalibrate your compass, because the 10th house is the top of your chart. That's like the direction that we're headed in, right? And the new moon in Virgo is going to ask you, is this healthy? Is this realistic? Is this sustainable? If not, recalibrate, right? Sometimes our emotional response to realizing things aren't working out, sometimes the emotions cause us to drown and get lost. So if you have big emotions around any of the realizations over the next couple of weeks, honor them, validate them, get them out, like write, sing, dance, whatever it is, and then come back to the drawing board. And because Virgo's influence is going to help us all see clearly what our next best steps are, when in the past couple of months it might have been really, really hard to find that clarity. Clarity is coming. So the new moon is the first step of clarity. And then again on September 9th, Mercury moves into Virgo, again assisting our clarity. So just give yourself time, right? This too shall pass. Now, Mars at the final degrees of Gemini on September 3rd is going to form a square from your 7th house to your 4th house with Neptune. And what that means is you may feel especially disappointed in the people around you. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, I'll totally help. But when you need them, they're gone. Or maybe you're the person always offering a shoulder to cry on or a listening ear, but when you need it, crickets, right? So there is a very high likelihood of really big emotions over the first few days in September, especially around the theme of whether or not you feel emotionally supported. And so if on any level you feel emotionally unsupported, it's an invitation to kind of take stock of who's in your life and either withdraw your energy from people who don't return it, or contemplate, maybe you need some new friends, right? Everybody is struggling, and not everybody who loves you is going to be able to be available to you every time you want them to, simply because it's pretty much the common theme right now. Like literally everyone is drowning. But if you can have an honest assessment and go, okay, this friend, they're usually there for me, but I guess right now they're busy, or you know what I mean? That's going to be different than this friend is literally never there for me, right? So it's going to be hard in times of big emotions. You deserve to be supported. You deserve to be loved, especially when you're struggling. So please don't hesitate to reach out, because all the love that you guys put out there, it should be returned. It really should be. So when Mars moves into Cancer on September 4th, it is going to be activating your 8th house, putting a huge highlight on reciprocity when it comes to emotional availability. Because you are somebody who will leap out of your chair to support somebody who's having a hard time, it is going to be especially heartbreaking to realize that some of the people in your life do not offer that, right? But I want you to be able to separate. It's not because you don't deserve it. You definitely deserve it. And sometimes it's because people are just drowning themselves, right? But if you notice genuine imbalance, give yourself permission to walk away from those relationships, because there's no sense in pouring your love into a black hole if it's never going to come back to you, right? But while Mars is moving through Cancer, which is going to be for a couple of months, be prepared to have a lot of really big feelings around reciprocity, around debt, and around any of those big, overwhelming themes in our life, including thoughts of your own mortality. Things like, well, I'm not getting any younger, things like that, right? Just be prepared for big emotional thoughts and do whatever you possibly can to nurture your poor heart with love, with patience, with compassion. Don't be hard on yourself for having big feelings, okay? Expect the big feelings and then give yourself tons of love. Now, Mercury is going to be moving through the final degrees of Leo, let's see, September 7th. And it's going to bring a frantic urgency to your headspace, where you're going to be thinking a lot about your belief systems, and some really yucky core beliefs might come up around insecurity, around deserving, around worthiness, right? So as much as you can, just listen to yourself think, but don't take yourself so seriously that you break your own heart. Because one of the things coming up for you is going to be ways in which you sabotage yourself by being mean to yourself. So if you notice that you're your own worst enemy, if you notice that you're bullying yourself, full stop, take a break and go, wait a minute, I wouldn't say these things to my best friend. Why would I say them to me, right? These are big, important questions to ask. Then Mercury moves into your 10th house. Mercury moves into Virgo, which is going to be awesome, because it's going to give you a bit of a relief when it comes to feeling insecure, feeling unworthy, feeling full of big emotions. It's going to be a lot easier by September 9th for you to see what your best steps are in order to live a healthy life of mind, body, and spirit, right? A healthy life in which you feel emotionally supported, and a healthy life in which you feel as though your hard work is paying off. So yeah, just be prepared for a lot of really big emotions in the first week of September. By the second week of September, it's going to be easier for you to take action, appropriate action. And then I'm going to be back on September 15th, because in the middle of September, we have a full moon lunar eclipse, and that's going to be wild. So as much as you can, do the footwork now so that the eclipse brings breakthroughs and relief. Mwah! Sending you guys all of my love. Thank you for being here. Good luck out there, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. Capricorn Sun and Capricorn Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There's a little bit of an interesting feature in your horoscopes because Pluto has just tiptoed back into your sign in the final degrees of Capricorn, and it is going to be the last time that it's there for 250 years. It's going to make a very brief little stint into Capricorn, not coming out until November. So you may feel as though something massive in your life has returned and it might not be for the better. You might realize in certain ways that you are your own worst enemy. You might realize that you've been handing over power to somebody else. And in particular, you might realize that you have been outsourcing your happiness. And what I mean by that is if we, in our lives, if we go, okay, I'm not happy because this person did this, or I'm not happy because I don't have success in my career, then what we're doing is we're saying that person or that career is responsible for my happiness, not me, right? And it seems really silly when I spell it out like that, but it's important to kind of be aware of any of those thoughts, any of those belief systems popping through your head over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, because what's happening for the collective is that external forces are catalyzing internal change. And it's up to every single one of us to respond accordingly. Now, Pluto being retrograde in your first house is an invitation for you to rethink your personal power. When you claim it, when you give it away, or when you try and overpower other people. It's going to be really important to just focus on who you are, walking your highest path, and let other people do their thing, right? Now, Uranus retrograde in your fifth house might bring to your attention any inner child wounds, any ways in which maybe you're so hard on yourself because that's what you were shown in your childhood. Or you might realize that you're approaching burnout because you put too much pressure on yourself, in which case this is going to be a time of kind of reformulating what your priorities are, including how you spend your time. So what we've got on Monday is a new moon in Virgo, and it's going to be in your ninth house. Your ninth house is your belief systems. So Monday's new moon is an opportunity for you to rethink what you believe about yourself, about the world around you, and thinking about how do those beliefs either lift you up or weigh you down, right? If you believe that love is conditional, you're going to make yourself miserable thinking that you have to earn love, or people only love you when you do something to earn it, right? Or if your belief system is that there is a vengeful God, and if you don't make God happy, you're going to be punished and go straight to hell. You're making yourself miserable. That is not a healthy belief system, and it's not true either. Do you see where I'm going with this? So what may come to your attention is a belief system, specifically one that you have held for quite some time. And it's going to be so deeply ingrained that you don't even realize how much you have integrated it into your awareness or into your life. But the new moon on Monday is going to invite you to take stock of any of those belief systems, whether they're self-created or whether they were imposed on you, and think about, do those belief systems help me be healthy? Do those belief systems help me be wealthy and wise? And if not, maybe I should chuck them in the fuck it bucket, right? Basically, it's an opportunity for you to clear out your headspace and make any necessary changes while you are so empowered right now to do so. Mars in the final degrees of Gemini activates your sixth house on the 3rd of September, and it forms a square to Neptune in your third house. So what that means is that in the first couple of days of September, there's going to be a huge focus on healthy headspace, and there's going to be a huge focus on the conversations that you have on a daily basis. Are you perpetuating those belief systems by talking about them all the time, by acting as if it's established fact? Or are you having a challenging time because people in your life keep saying things that make you question your self-worth. The topic is going to be the conversations that you have specifically with the people closest to you and how that plays out within your health and wellness, specifically mental health. Then Mars moves into Cancer on September 4th. And so that's going to bring a huge highlight on the activities or projects or things that you do with the people closest to you. Maybe a roommate, a bestie, a lover, a partner, business or professional partners, one-on-one interactions. And there's going to be a lot of emotion behind those one-on-one interactions. And there's going to be a big couple of months where you think about, is this healthy for my heart, or is this sucking the life out of me, right? And then Mercury in the final degrees of Leo activating your 8th house is going to bring a big deep thought kind of vibe where you're thinking, is this a long-standing pattern? Is this my karma? Is this generational karma? Did I bring this on? Have I created this? Really, really big, deep thoughts. And again, it keeps coming back to your childhood or your inner child. Are these things that you were taught to believe or came to believe since you were really little? Because if you can go back as far as possible to the source of your misery or to the source of these repeating patterns, go back to the very, very, very beginning, that is where you can pull the root of any weeds that are growing in your garden and really kind of clean up your life in a healthy and constructive way. You may be tempted to get into ego battles or power struggles, especially if conversations center around belief systems. People right now are going to be unreasonably motivated or compelled to stand up for their beliefs, even if all evidence proves otherwise. This is not the time to get into some sort of heated debate about religion, politics, personal choices, any of those kind of taboo subjects. I mean, I come from the States. I love talking about taboo subjects. But what we have to always realize is that not everyone has the capability of talking about something like that and then letting it go. A lot of people take those conversations very personally, and they will respond with personal anger instead of the ability to separate yourself from the topic that you're discussing. So if you feel compelled to talk about any of those big subjects, please do choose your audience or your person wisely, because if you get into it with the wrong person, all hell could break loose, right? It's going to be very important to you to feel as though you're on the same page with the people in your life. And it's going to be very important to you to talk about some of these things that feel really, really urgent, right? But again, you've got to consider your audience, consider your source, right? The idea should be achieving mutual understanding. But if any party within a conversation is in it to win it or in it to dominate, that's where everything's going to go sideways to the point of no return. So I hope you guys have an amazing couple of weeks. Please do remember not to take yourself or life too seriously. We're not getting out of here alive, right? Whatever you can do, think about what's coming from your heart and think about how you can be healthier and happier for yourself, whether or not anybody else around you validates or agrees with it, okay? So hang in there. Good luck over the next couple of weeks. I will see you in 2 weeks on September 15th, where we will be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse that's going to change everything. So have a good one. Mwah. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Aquarius sun. Ooh, I'm throwing my pen. Aquarius sun and Aquarius rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We've definitely got a lot to talk about. Pluto had been briefly in your sign, and it's doing one final little retrograde tiptoe backstep into Capricorn, only until November. And then mid-November, Pluto will return to your sign. The implication for you guys on a metaphysical and metaphorical level is that you may feel temporarily disempowered for the next couple of months until mid-November. Because when Pluto is in your sign as an Aquarius or an Aquarius rising, it embodies power and strength. It helps you be really, really mindful about when and where you are claiming your power and when and where you're either surrendering it or giving it away. And what becomes foggy and confusing is that now that Pluto is briefly going back into Capricorn, that's your 12th house. That's mystery. That's things that are hidden. It's subconscious. So you may not realize that you have surrendered your power. You may not realize that you're putting yourself into a situation in which you are disempowered. Your personal relationship with power or control or simply sovereignty, the ability to be an independent, free-thinking individual, that may become just profoundly foggy or confusing over the next couple of months. So do be prepared to feel a bit off base or off center for the next little bit. But the impetus, though, is to recognize when and where we might have missed valuable information. You may feel as though you are getting back into some sort of power struggle or challenging dynamic where you're like, man, I thought I figured this out. I thought I already solved this problem. Or I thought I already resolved this with this person or whatever. So if you find that you're having a bit of not fun deja vu or a repeat of some of these themes, it's not that you're back to square one. It is, though, maybe you might have missed something. Maybe something wasn't clear, either in your ability to set boundaries or your willingness to detach, or you know what I mean? So just observe, but don't absorb. Don't let yourself get too down about any repeating themes. It's just an opportunity to make sure that we covered all of our bases, right? Uranus is currently retrograde in your 4th house, really inspiring you and urging you to make any necessary changes that will lead to a healthier life as far as your heart, as far as your emotions, and as far as wherever it is that you call home. And if the power struggles are happening within your home, it may be one of those final straw moments where you're like, okay, I'm done. So however it comes through for you, there's a new moon on Monday, tomorrow, and it's a new moon in Virgo. And the new moon in Virgo for you guys, Aquarius Sun and Rising, is activating your 8th house of repeating patterns, karma, and life, death, and rebirth. So these are really big, overwhelming themes where it's going to be more difficult for you guys than any other sign to separate the forest from the trees. You're going to see these big themes happening. You're going to feel like it's a really big deal when in fact sometimes, and a lot of the time, it's just about tiny choices, tiny words, tiny adjustments in our energy or what we choose to engage in, right? So if you do feel overwhelmed, please don't hesitate to seek out the advice or guidance of a counselor, a therapist, somebody who's able to help you see the bigger picture and kind of tease apart the little details so you can organize what your next best steps are. That's what the new moon in Virgo wants to offer us, is the opportunity to get really clear on whatever constructive or necessary changes are going to lead to the healthiest, happiest, most well-balanced life possible. But for you guys, what might happen is you might have the thought or the feeling, well, God, everything needs to change. And that's not necessarily the case. It could be, but it's quite possible it's just small, tiny adjustments to your energy and to what it is that you choose to co-create with other people. So when Mars, which is in the last degrees of Gemini over the next couple of days, in your 5th house of play, joy, and creativity, it's going to form a square to Neptune in your 2nd house. You may feel as though your children, your grandchildren, people who are younger than you, either within your family or within your life. You may feel as though they are not embodying the ideals that you thought you taught them. You may have moments over the next couple of weeks of feeling like, what the hell is wrong with the younger generation? Well, I'll tell you, they don't have a future to look forward to. Those of us that were raised when things felt sort of solid, sort of predictable, those of us that, you know, maybe Generation X and prior actually had a chance at home ownership, actually had a chance at making something out of their lives. But the younger generations, there's no fucking way, right? The younger generations are growing up with despair and hopelessness. And so of course they're tuning out. Of course they're obsessed with technology. Of course they're disassociating on a constant basis, right? And so what I'm trying to say here is, before we judge the younger generations, we have to consider that they had a completely different foundation for life than we did, right? And then there's a whole bunch of us in Generation X that didn't have the opportunity to buy houses or whatever when it was cheap, and we're screwed too, right? So what I'm trying to say is that Mars square Neptune is going to activate or catalyze a lot of frustration with wanting the people in your life to represent or live the ideals that you think are really obvious, but for whatever reason they don't see it as obvious, or they don't see it as a priority. You may have many moments over the next couple of weeks of feeling like your happiness is diminished because you're not able to manifest your ideals, or the people around you are making your life hard, or there's a very high likelihood of feeling disempowered, disenfranchised, despair over the next couple of weeks. And I just want to make you aware so that you can insulate yourself, so that you can respond with any appropriate mental health practices that help you be healthy and surf these big emotions. And then what happens is Mars will move into Cancer in your 6th house. And so there's going to be an opportunity for you to start making constructive changes in your day-to-day life that are coming from a place of desiring emotional health. But definitely ask yourself, in whose name do I make these changes? Am I making these changes because they're going to make me feel healthy? Or am I making these changes because I'm trying to make somebody else feel something or do something or value something, right? So when we have to come back to the serenity prayer, you know, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, other people, the courage to change the things I can, myself, and the wisdom to know the difference. You guys are going to be experiencing probably the hardest bit of this 2-week period, but I promise you this too shall pass. And any realizations that you have right now, if you're able to be honest, if you're able to be compassionate, if you're able to see the bigger picture, it won't cause you to drown as much. So do give yourself opportunities to take space, recharge, reflect, get those big emotions out when you're by yourself, so that when you come into the company of other people, you're not leaking unmet expectations onto people. There is a high likelihood that you are 1,000% correct in your assessments, but not everybody's going to see it that way. And so to a very great extent, we have to just make changes for us. We have to take what we've learned and act accordingly, with the understanding that we just can't change other people, right? So feel free to be a healthy level of selfish. Feel free to make any necessary adjustments in your personal or professional life that are going to lead to emotional health. Do what you have to do. And sometimes it's going to mean withdrawing your energy. Sometimes it's going to mean withdrawing your support, right? Do what you got to do. Give yourself permission, because right now it's about your survival. It's about your health. It's about your wellness. And that needs to be the highest priority. Full stop. Right? Okay. There's a lot of stuff to absorb. There's a lot of change to be made. There's a lot of deep, deep questions and deep, profound reflections that are going to come through for you guys over the next couple of weeks. But if you can not shy away, face it head on, you are going to be shown the way, the truth, and the light. And by the middle of September, when we have a full moon lunar eclipse, you're going to be ready to make any necessary changes in order to help you live your best life. So good luck out there. Mwah! I really mean it. Good luck out there. And I will see you in 2 weeks on September 15th, where we will have the eclipse horoscopes. I'll see you next time. Pisces Sun and Pisces Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We have 2 major outer planets retrograde, and they are both in Earth signs right now. And because you are a water sign, there is a tendency on your part to just want to go with the flow, right? But these outer planets, Uranus and Pluto, being retrograde in Earth signs, are begrudgingly bringing you to the forefront of whatever it is in your immediate physical environment that needs a second look. Uranus retrograde in your 3rd house is inviting you to be inspired by the people around you, be inspired by all that you are reading, all that you're writing, and really implement those reflections, those realizations in a way that is going to help you be healthier and happier moving forwards. Pluto being retrograde in your 11th house, briefly touching into Capricorn before it moves back into Aquarius. And it's not going to be in Capricorn for the next 250 years. Like, this is it. So it is going to be a brief stint in your 11th house where you are going to be rethinking the whole theme of with great power comes great responsibility. Instead of avoiding trouble, instead of wanting to just blend in the background, you're going to feel a bit of an oomph, a bit of an impetus to maybe take action in a way that helps empower others. If you have privilege, if you have status, if you have a voice, you're going to be more inspired than ever before to use that power or that status or that voice to help somebody else who does not have power, status, or a voice, right? It is going to be a time of feeling really inspired, wanting to inspire others, and really being willing to take action, having conversations and following through. Now, what's funny about that is that Mars has been in Gemini for the last couple of months, which has been a big energy of all talk but no follow through. But what happens on September 4th is that Mars moves into your 5th house. You're going to be coming out of your shell. You're going to be way more willing to get out there and not in a like kind of way, but in a like, let's play, let's have fun. You know what I mean? Like helping organize some sort of a grassroots movement, but having it be centered around arts and music instead of raging. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have a very playful energy and vibe, but through pleasure, through play, you're going to be actually wanting to manifest and catalyze constructive change. And ironically, humans learn best with play anyway. So if you can turn your growth and the things you want to do, if you can turn it into a game, a fun challenge for yourself, you're going to excel at anything it is that you take on. We want to shy away from, oh, I have to, I'm supposed to, because you in particular do not like that, right? So turn it into fun, turn it into play, and you're going to rock it. Now on Monday, we have a new moon in Virgo, and that is in your 7th house. And you may be reflecting on the people in your life, especially any new connections that have come into your life, ones that inspire you to be healthy. Because Virgo is all about health and wellness, the mind, body, the spirit, the heart, and how can we be healthy by establishing daily habits that help us be at our best, right? So for you guys, because that new moon is on Monday, you might find that a friend is inspiring you to join a yoga class, or start going to the gym, or start going on a daily walk in which you are appreciating the nature around you. Often it is with a friend that we are more inspired to start implementing some of those healthy habits. So over the next couple of days, if somebody invites you to join in on something like that, definitely say yes. It is a destined opportunity. Mars forms a square with Neptune just before it moves into Cancer. And so that whole talk is cheap energy is really going to reach a peak by Tuesday, September 3rd. You may feel really bothered by people who keep talking about doing awesome things but never actually do awesome things. And that frustration, that irritation is going to lead to, by the middle end of the week, you following through on some of those things because you're like, whatever, now's the time, let's do it, right? Now moving into the second week of September, Mercury at the final degrees of Leo is going to be in your 6th house. And so a big part of your thinking at that time is, I have to look after me. And it might be along the lines of noticing, okay, I'm not getting any younger. I really need to look after my health. I really need to be making healthy choices, or, you know, aligning with healthy habits. And it is going to create a square to Uranus in Taurus in your 3rd house. And again, just kind of pinpointing this repeating theme over the next couple of weeks, which is, if you're talking about being healthy and the people around you are like, yeah, but never do it, then that means you're never going to do it either. And so the more that you can surround yourself with people who follow through on these ideas and take action to be healthy, that is going to help you follow through and take action as well. So please do pay attention to who you surround yourself by and whether or not they are inspiring you or holding you back, right? Talk is cheap. Now, the sun is going to form an opposition to Saturn, and Mercury moves back into Virgo. So basically, like I said, this repeating pattern, there's a big highlight on the people closest to you in your life. A partner, a lover, a roommate, a best friend. And again, because you are so often so relationship focused, it's those people that you align yourself with that are either going to make these things work for you or break any resolutions, right? If you hang out with someone that drinks all the time, then your resolution to stop drinking is going to be very, very difficult, because your friend is always going to be like, hey, come drink with me, right? So we really have to pick our company wisely. And you may feel reluctant to set boundaries if these are people that you love, but you're faced with, okay, it's either me versus them, right? So don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. That's one of the things that's coming through, especially on or around September 11th. Mercury forms a really helpful supportive angle to Mars. So that means if you are willing to speak your truth, if you are willing to kind of put your foot down and be like, this is what needs to happen, you're going to feel less at the mercy of the crowd. Right? There is a huge energy for you to embrace right now that is self-preservation, self-actualization, and doing things because it makes your life better. So good luck out there, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in 2 weeks at the full moon. We're going to be talking about a full moon lunar eclipse. It's going to get crazy. You're definitely going to want to come back for that. So good luck out there, and I will talk to you later. Bye.